of God and we go after some of these fads, and we're talking about raw food right now, versus putting our trust in what he has laid down for us, people can end up undernourished. And remember, I mentioned to you that some of our foods, there's a greater release of certain minerals, certain, I won't want to say phytochemicals, certain minerals and vitamins. Not all are destroyed necessarily with cooking. Now, he goes on to say, yes, devoid of vital minerals, kidney damage or kidney failure. Also, a brain swelling due to a severe electrolyte imbalance or something called hyponatremia, a condition caused by excess water in the blood, which can result in dangerously low levels of sodium. And so we see in our trust in doing that which God has given us, not looking at diets such as the raw food diets for our healing, but the foods simply that God has provided for us. This is where we find our proper healing and allowing the Lord to take care of us. Now, exercise. Are we trusting in God as we should, even with the simple issue as exercise? We're told in Pathways, once again, page 85, exercise in the open air should be prescribed as a life-giving necessity. And for such exercises, there's nothing better than the cultivation of the soil. Exercise, it says, walking in all cases where it is possible is the best remedy for diseased bodies, because in this exercise and all the organs of the body are brought into use. Now, exercise, as we know, we've been told, is good for diseased bodies, such as obesity, diabetes, depression, even for back problems. When we get out and walk, we've had some clients that we've actually sat down and done consultations with, and the more they start walking, not a heavy or a hard walk, but just a good, slow walk, and they build up their speed in that, they find out that their back problems start going away. And it's also good in terms of cholesterol issues as well. The reason I'm going to stick with exercise for a moment, there's a practice called Pilates. Have any of you ever heard of Pilates? Pilates? You can get a lot of good benefits from that. Did you all know that? A lot of good benefits. Huh? I'm going to explain it. A lot of good benefits. I'm hearing some comments sound like y'all are concerned. Well, let's move into this because we may spend a little time here. It says, German-born Joseph Pilates designed a system of exercise based on aerobics. That's good. Yoga postures of Surya Namaskaras. I'm going to explain to you what that is. And you tell me what you think about Pilates after we finish. Pilates, like I said, you can gain a lot of good benefits. It says Surya Namaskara, or sun salutation. Salute to the sun is a common sequence of this form of yoga practices. Listen at this. Its origins lie in a worship of Surya, the Hindu solar deity, which is in essence what? The Hindu solar god. This sequence of movements and poses can be practiced on varying levels of awareness, ranging from that of physical exercise, and that's why I was saying a lot of benefits here now, in various styles, to a complete, it goes into some other words. Well, one I'm going to mention, a complete mantra and chakra meditation.
But is Pilates different than yoga? Because yoga, they go through all those salutations.
No, Pilates gains a lot of its practices from yoga. And that's why I mentioned that particular part of Pilates, that particular yoga meditation. Pilates in and of itself would not be complete without all these other parts. So Pilates actually contains some parts of yoga where they actually go out in the morning and they stand toward the rising sun and do their worships. And in the evening, they stand toward the setting sun and do it because they're acknowledging this deity of the sun. She, yes.
That's scary because the first time I even did Pilates at an Adventist school.
Have mercy.
So they're
Oh,
teaching.
hold on.
Yeah.
They're not gonna give my diploma after this.
They'll give it to you. The Lord's we're gonna trust him, and he's gonna dumbfound man. But go
Amen.
ahead.
The first time I ever heard or even done Pilates was at an Adventist school.
Mm-hmm.
And that's scary because our schools are teaching this. So it's good information to know.
Right. Well,
Mhm.
what happens sometimes is I heard a particular, he's a professor as well, once say that sometimes we pick the fruit, but we don't know the root.
That's deep. I like
That's a sermon right there.
Yes, it is. So it's almost as if all we're looking for, and that's why I want to bring us back to this whole issue of trust. We're looking at the fact that it's good, I'll get great results, no matter where it comes from. And that sometimes can cause us a problem. Let me ask you this. If I cook some greens, how many of you like greens? If I cook some greens, I cook pretty good greens, by the way, too. But if I cook some greens and I put pork in them, and now you come over and say, well, I love greens. I tell you what I'll do. I put pork in these, but I'm going to take the pork out because you don't eat pork, and I'm going to give them to you anyway. Would that be okay? No. Now, Pilates has its roots in Eastern medicine, mysticism, and it says on here, Zen meditation, Greek and Roman exercise regimens. Mythologies is a part of Buddhism, and as I mentioned, Eastern religion. So, do I get good results? Because of the root of it and what goes into it, like what I put into my greens, is it still something that is good for us? Though you may not, remember now I mentioned to you that part of it, the people stand in the morning, this is when they're in groups, and some people do it in their homes. They stand toward the sun and do some pose and do certain other things. Some of you may have never done any of that if you practice Pilates. And in the evening, they will stand toward the setting sun. But see, there's this ball that some of them use too. How many of you are familiar with the ball that they do for Pilates, where you get on it and work your back, that strengthens the torso muscles and so forth? What in essence the enemy has done, he's dressed it up in such a way and people get the results, and he rolls the ball to them and they get it and start doing these things, and you don't see anything wrong with it. But what is its source? Where is its origin? These are the things we need to look at. Do you get the results? Of course you do. But wouldn't Satan have it just that way? I would think so. I would think so. In addition, let me share this with you. Pilates, this is the gentleman, his name that created it is called Joseph Pilates. Pilates called his method controlology, from control in some word in Greek and so forth. It says, because he believed his methods uses mind to control the muscles. Which in essence, it doesn't sound like much is wrong with that, but when you're exercising, like say for instance, when you go out and walk, are you utilizing your mind to say to control and bring about healing in the muscles? Exactly. My sister said it's a natural thing when you follow, basically, and I'm going to add to that, when you follow the ways that God has laid down to us and that God has prescribed for us. Pilates, there's something else I want to say. And part it is about mind control. And also it says Pilates exercises teach awareness of breath, alignment of the spine, and aim to strengthen muscles. But once again, all of this is based on Eastern medicine to teach mind control, to condition the body and center it in harmony with the cosmos. Wow. Now, you may never stand up out and face the sun. You may do none of these things. But what I want you to get in mind, and also when you sit down and share with others, the origins of such practices. Can Christians be involved in such? Even more so, can we as Seventh-day Adventist Christians be involved in this? And I'm not excusing, what happened at our schools, but I think sometimes so many things look good to us that we just pick it, and unfortunately, we are not going according to the law and to the testimony. Yes.
I heard praise teams came out of charismatic Catholic movement, and there's praise teams in almost all of our churches.
There may be a lot of truth to that. One thing I can share with you, there's something back in the 60s called Vatican II. And I'm just going to touch on. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. She mentioned that she heard praise teams and came out of the charismatic Catholic movement. There was something back in the 60s, a conference called Vatican II, where there was a discussion basically on how to utilize music, as Sister Sarah was kind of touching on yesterday, to bring about a form of unification amongst all the churches. And that's churches of every single denomination. And so kind of in a nutshell, what you see is these particular, like you mentioned, the praise teams and so forth, not only in some of the brethren in the first day churches, but in ours and even a charismatic, the two don't really go together when you think about it, a charismatic Catholic movement as well. But this whole thing of a charismatic movement, its purpose in part is for unification. And what we can see is there's a wall of partition being broken down where you don't see the difference in some versus the others without going into any great detail. So there could very well be some truth to what you just shared. Now I want to move on to water, because I was going to try and make it through all of NEWSTART. And I think I just might be able to do it in rapid form. It says, in health and in sickness, pure water is one of heaven's choicest blessings. Its proper use promotes health. The external application of water is one of the easiest and most satisfying ways of regulating the circulation of the blood. But what water in the body also does is help to purify and detox the body. And I want you to hold on to those two words. Water outside of the body does the same thing. So what about colonics? Colonics are mainly used to help detox, right? Now, is this one of the ways that God has laid down to us as a people? No, it is not. Is there a time and a place for it? Yes, there is. In emergency situations where someone is seriously impacted. But going once a month, and I've heard in some cases people going twice a month, what that does to your system. Remember, trusting in God's ways, there are no negative side effects, no negative consequences. But when you take on some of these other ways that even colonics as well date back to Egypt and not so much necessarily mysticism, but the practices of the medicines of Egypt itself, and then moving on into Eastern medicine itself. So that's one of the reasons there, but here's what colonics can do. Upset electrolyte balance, cause organ injury or organ damage, can wash away the healthy bacteria in the GI tract or the healthy flora or so forth, and it can create what's called a lazy colon, meaning that as you continue to do the colonic, it stretches it. It's almost like blowing up a balloon and letting that balloon sit. That balloon does not go back to its original shape. So it is very similar when we do these colonics. The more you continue to do them, the GI tract or the intestines lose their muscle tone, and thus the peristaltic action cannot take place, so that it continues to move things through your GI tract and out your system. So we want to stay away from colonics, right? Ways that we can detox through God's means that we're trusting in: our foods, drinking ample water, exercise. As we move about and we sweat, we get rid of the toxins right there. As we breathe, fasting in terms of, I wouldn't utilize that necessarily in terms of detoxing. Now, in a controlled situation, sometimes